This is Dawn Jarvis. As you can see from the bit that it says under her name, she's Dawn Jarvis, who's the diverse nurse. Dawn, I want to welcome her. She's a nurse, entrepreneur, speaker, mentor and consultant. She could really help anyone who's busy, and I brought her on because she's so good at helping business owners. That includes you, whether you're a consultant, whether you're an author, whether you're a business owner who builds your business around speaking or anything else like that. And it's especially why I really wanted her to be part of this talk in the Vibes Tribe and on YouTube too. I'm going to start by asking a strange question, Dawn. You're known as the diverse nurse.
Yeah.
Tell us why.
So actually, you helped me with this. I worked in the NHS, the National Health Service in England, for 35 years, and I left and I started my business. And while I worked for the NHS, I used to help nurses of colour with their leadership aspirations and helping them with their careers, sort of like how they could use networking, literally tips and tricks about how to interview well and how to get jobs. In that work, I also did some work with workforce. I worked for an organisation within the NHS called Capital Nurse, which was around getting nurses to work in London because there's a shortage, and there still is a shortage. I sort of and I also worked with communities. I worked in Hackney, which is a very diverse, if that's the right word, urban community with different populations. And one of the things was about how do you, which they called hard to reach, which is a bit of a problematic term, but how do you get people that don't access services? How do you get them to access services? How do you get people to be nurses who might not have thought about being nurses? So that means people who are older, people who are disabled, people from different communities. And so that the reason I decided to the moniker of the diverse nurse is about seeing diversity in all sorts of different ways. We are all diverse, so I'm a black woman, but I'm a woman, I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a business owner, I'm a nurse, and that brings a whole load of diversity and a different perspective on how I see the world. And also when I was working as a nurse, the people, our clients, we call them patients, which is quite paternalistic, but our clients see things from a different perspective. The way they see health is different, the way they access health is different, and that includes sort of from a staffing point of view. So the point of view about services is if services are designed, and I used to design services for people who can access them between 9 and 5, that means you're excluding people who are at school or teachers in school. And so for me, it's about diversity in all different ways and how that affects your business, yourself, because we're all part of the continuum, aren't we? We're all part of the world holistically, and we're all partaking. So even as a nurse, I was a patient too, and that affected that. So my work is around working with business and business owners about how they can see things in a diverse way. And I'll give you an example of that. I work with a client who's got a business around diabetes, and he's a white man, but I'm sort of talking to, so he wants to do something around food, and I'm saying, but there's all different kinds of food, so it's great. He's got this really great thing about a shopping cart for diabetics, but I'm saying to him, there's different types of food, different types of cultures, and that you might want to introduce that, to just to have a different perspective of how you look at it. So that's what
I'm going to ask a question. It's going to seem like an obvious question, and I know that you've got the nursing background as well, but can you give us any more background as to what led you to want to run the podcast on this topic?
Yeah, I can tell you there is a story behind it. I was part of another mastermind that I'm part of, and they had a special guest, and I'm not going to name the special guest, but he was quite well known as a serial entrepreneur, and so it was quite exciting, and he'd written a book and he was a speaker, and it was quite exciting, so that he was going to come. And the coach said, "Oh, he's still coming, But his mum died 2 days ago, but he's still coming. And I was like, his mum died 2 days ago. So he came and he did his thing and he talked about it and he was really good. And then it was time for questions. And I said, how do you manage your health and well-being? Because your mum died 2 days ago and you're here. And he basically said that he lived to work, worked to live. And that was his relaxation, that he was very, and this is my interpretation, like an A-type personality, and that, you know, he'd been married, he'd been divorced, he'd had several businesses, one very high profile business, and some had been really successful, some hadn't, and the common denominator was him keeping working, him being the driver behind it. And at the time, in the mastermind that we were in, there'd been a suggestion to do an audit of your time, and I realised doing that audit that I was working 15 to 17 hour days regularly, not sleeping, not exercising. It was in the middle of lockdown and I was sitting in a chair like I'm sitting now for 15 to 16 hours a day, not drinking enough water. And I said to him, how do you relax? And he couldn't answer the question. So he said, oh, I've got friends who've got boats, which I thought was a really interesting answer. And so that was the idea for the podcast, because I'd done the podcast, I'd sort of done 3 episodes and I didn't really know what the focus was, and I had some feedback, it needs a theme, and as you know, polymath resist all that. And so I thought, I've met a lot of business owners, I've met a lot of coaches, mentors, authors, in these groups. They're all striving to have their own business, and but it takes a lot of work, and part of the dream is it that you're supposed to work less, actually, but I personally was working more than I worked in my full-time job, which I worked very, very hard at. I was working 7 days a week, and I was thinking that's the theme of the podcast. It's around health and well-being for entrepreneurs, because if anybody's like me, and I'm not saying everybody is like me, an A-type personality who's a perfectionist and wants everything to be right and will work, how do you make time for your family, for your own well-being, for all those things that they tell us that we should do? How do you make time for that? And I was struggling to make time. So part of it was sort of like, so if anybody's got the answer, please tell me. Part of it is that I'm a nurse, so I'm about health and well-being. Part of it was around, we're in the middle of a pandemic which is affecting everybody's well-being, which is another word for mental health, and it was interesting to me, and it's great to talk to people about it, and really interesting at how they process and articulate how they manage their health and well-being.
What are some of the things that you see people doing that are like kind of damaging their well-being as business owners?
So I think the main thing is around sleep, and actually, when we were both, because there's a culture of so I'll start again. Actually, so you just described the culture of work. There was a culture in corporate NHS, definitely. I've said to people before, when I was nursing, like clinically nursing, which I started in the 80s, we weren't allowed, and I don't know what that means, allowed to not look busy. We always had to be moving. That was the culture. We weren't allowed to sit down while we were supposed to be working. So I was brought up in a culture, trained in a culture. You have to look busy, even if you're not busy. You need to look like you're busy. So there's this work, and that was repeated in we always were. Everything had to be done by close of play. As you said, people went in earlier, worked later. People commuted from all over the country into London. Long days, long days. And then, as you said, what can happen from people who come from that kind of background is they that's their norm, that's what they repeat. That's definitely what I did. I sometimes still do. You repeat that sort of like I've got to start at 9 o'clock, but in addition, because remember we were doing them, we were in a mastermind in America, so you're doing the original 9 to 5, and then you might be doing evening clients because you want to get the work. That's what I notice people doing. But the main thing I notice people doing is around their sleep. Not getting enough sleep, not factoring in that well-being time, not factoring in that just time for reflection. So when I was working corporately, I used to work in Waterloo in central London, and it was a half an hour train ride. I used to use that half an hour train ride just to sit and do nothing. And because I don't commute anymore, I don't have that time, so I have to factor in that time to do that. And also to be really clear, so what I notice people, and so that because there's so many, there's not enough hours in a day, they forget that they have to make time for their relationships, they have to make time for their friends, they have to make time for their family in the way. And they also, and this is sort of also part of the working at home, the 24-hour culture, they have to stop and they have to start. And that includes the sleep. And the main thing, the thing I still struggle with, is drinking enough water and making sure that eat and drink. And even if you can't exercise, how to yes,
all of the brands are available.
Yes, it's sort of like making that time, thinking. So I struggle, because I'm always really busy, quite focused in that, making the time to drink, making the time to eat. Like yesterday I put in dinner, supper, tea, whatever you want to call it, into my diary to make sure that I had something to eat, because you can just do one thing after another, and then and it just runs into it. So I think in the excitement of your business, and you have to work really hard at the beginning, and there's lots to learn, particularly if that's not what you did naturally, it all gets a bit much. But I think part of having a successful business, successful career, successful anything, is making time for you and making sure you're looking after yourself physically and mentally, and holistically as well.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I know that people that will watch this, and definitely that will be watching this back, will be looking for some tips, because I think we probably hit a nerve with all of those and things that you've been doing. So let's take the sleep one. If you share a tip and I'll share a tip, what would you say is a good tip for somebody who is kind of burning the candle at both ends and not sleeping? From a well-being perspective,
I would say it's important that your bedroom is a sanctuary, and that I would say, so I did this personally. I got blackout curtains and a time to switch off your phone, and not to look at any electronic equipment, and just have a time that is around sleep. So your bedroom or wherever you sleep should be a space, a relaxing space, and with no electronic gadgets. The other tip I would use, and this is for everything, is notice how much sleep you do get, and notice how you feel when you've had a good night's sleep, so that you've got a marker of what is a good, what does success look like, is one of the things that I'm really into. If you've got a problem, is that, so I need between 6 and 8 hours sleep, and if I don't get between 6 and 8 sleep, I know what's going to happen. So you know what good is, and then plan around what good is, and then notice what good feels like. So for me, dark room, no distractions, and going to bed to go to sleep works for me. 6 to 8 hours works for me. That is good. So the plan is to wind down, around 10 o'clock, and sort of like turn your phone off, turn your YouTube channel off, which is a bit of a distraction for me, and then concentrate and going to sleep. If you need music, and sort of the blue light from televisions and from computers and from phones is really damaging, and it's about the quality of the sleep. I've talked to people about their sleep, and they might not have trouble going to sleep, but they may wake up early, and if that's happening, notice it, and notice what the reasons are for it as well.
Yeah, that's so good. What tips can you give for those entrepreneurs that skip lunch, or don't eat regularly, because as a health professional how damaging that can be?
Yeah, So yeah, I really like what you're saying about, so as I said, what I do is I schedule a lunch time or a supper time depending on when I'm going to work. So sometimes my office hours are between 9 and 8 at night. But what I do is if I've got appointments up till 8, I don't work during the day. And so that lunchtime or dinner time might be different. But the thing is around scheduling it in and being aware of what's in your diary, being aware of what's coming up so it's not a surprise. And also I would also schedule in thinking time. So you need to think about what's going to happen, and and this is a thing from nursing. So nursing's quite reactive. I always say I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie. I'm really good in an emergency. I can think quickly, and I can, and that's good in an emergency, but you can't maintain being in an emergency forever. And to be fair to everybody and myself, the pandemic has been an emergency that we've been in for nearly 2 years now. And so now, knowing that, we need to think about how in these different times, how are we going to when people say we need to normalize it in the papers and everything, I think, it's not normal though, is it really? And they say we've got to live with it. Yes, we do, but in the knowledge. And so when I say normalize it and how we can live with it, I'm saying we need to recognize this is not normal, but we need to also think about, yes, it's not normal, but we cannot maintain these high levels of stress that we're all under for another 4 years, which is how we may be. So how are we going to do that? How are we going to do that while so some of the things we can do is plan, anticipate, know what happens, what is normal, what is not normal, how does it make us feel, and how do we plan for it. So for the eating, it's not good to go more than 3 or 4 hours, 5 max, without eating, and plan that into your day. When are you going to fit in your lunch? When are you going to fit in your water? So, and going back to the water, I have to say, right, I'm going to drink at least 2 litres a day. Sometimes I put actually 2 litres into glasses and say, I need to drink that by the end of the day. So I've got a marker about whether I've drunk or not. So that needs to happen. So that's what I'll say. Anticipate, plan, but also put time to think what is good for you, what will make you feel better, what's happening when you feel good, when you feel healthy, when things are happening well for you, what's happening, and then how can you create that as part of your day. And if you have days that aren't normal, and I really get that, because I used to work shifts, so no 2 days were the same. So then you turn the clock around. So when can you fit those things in? If when we used to have late shifts and finish at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, so that your whole day is different. So do you need to go straight to bed? How do you wind down? You still need to do all of those things. It's just the clock is a little bit different.
Yeah, my mum's a retired nurse, and I really don't know how you do it. I mean, I've got no comparison having never nursed, but I know that if I've had a speaking gig in the evening, I can get home and hours later I'm literally buzzing. That's one of the things that I find it hard to keep that routine if I've been out networking in the evening, or if I've been speaking online or off. Actually, I'm buzzing, and if I can go to sleep before 1 o'clock, that's great.
I know. So in that instance, and I totally know what you mean. And what didn't work in nursing is you could finish at 10 o'clock one night and then start at 7 o'clock in the morning. That doesn't work. But if you've got any control over your timetable, knowing that you're going to be busy and not going to go to bed till later, then not to schedule anything in the morning, because you need to sort of you need to do that pattern, and to know that it's people who struggle with this are people who are like, I get up at 6 and I go to bed at 10, but if you've got any control over it, like you said, if you're out of an evening, if you've had a drink, if things are not going to be the same as they are normally. So anticipate that, plan, how's your next day going to be, and that would be my my advice. And emergencies happen and things happen, but it's around getting you back to your true, what I call your true north. What is, how do you work, and it's good.
Yeah.
Get back to that.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a bit more about how you got started doing the podcast? What were the kind of almost the well-being challenges that you had to overcome doing that?
So interestingly, the pandemic obviously is awful, but one of the things is that people they're more happy to be on video than they were. And part of the thing around the podcast and the YouTube channel is that obviously I record it on video, and so people have to be happy to be on video. They have to have not a story to tell, because I'm quite good at interviewing, so I can get a story out of people. But to feel comfortable about what they're offering, what their story is. And I think you talk about this in your work, Jenny, don't you? About you need to sort of like, so when you have the opportunity to be visible, what are you saying? What are you drawing people's attention to? And so that has been the thing. So I don't struggle to get guests, but I do network to get guests, and it is an opportunity. And I do it because it actually helps me to maintain my nursing registration because of the health and wellness of it. And but it's also an opportunity for my guests to put themselves out there, and to sort of like be able to describe their what they're doing, what their offers are, their philosophy is like. So as you said at the beginning, it's like who they are, what they do, and why they do it, which is always fascinating and always has a health component to it. And so sometimes I spoke to someone, and sometimes I have to be a nurse. I have to sort of like we're talking about this, and it's quite emotive, and you don't have to disclose things you don't want to disclose. You have to do that. And sometimes I have to with the guest, with the client, manage that as well, because some of the things we talk about are really emotive. And yesterday I did one with a lady who's got alopecia, and we talked about hair loss, which I know affects a lot of people. I've had problems with hair loss and things like that, and it was hard, and so I have to look after myself as well as look after the guest, and also look after the listener as well. So from a nurse point of view, I have to be really careful that we're not giving out misinformation, that that there's resources that people can access if they want to know more about it. So and that's good. That's part of teaching. That's part of learning as well. And also you have to have your face on as well. And that when I was talking to my guest about alopecia, I was talking about sort of the importance of hair and the importance that it has to women as opposed to men, and that brings it back to the diversity thing as well. So and it's also good marketing for my business as well, and for my visibility too.
That's brilliant. That's so great to hear.
One of the things that's come out of the pandemic, and like I said, it's a horrible thing, the pandemic, is the recognition that people need support, and they need support with their health and well-being, so that they can do sometimes very difficult jobs. And most jobs are difficult, and sometimes living is difficult in a difficult situation. And I think we will see more of this sort of like organizations thinking about how can we help people to connect, to have community, so that they can live their lives. It's more important than ever. And I would say I was on a call yesterday with someone from a recruitment agency, in that companies are looking for people who will help their staff with their health and well-being, and there's things from a health perspective that sometimes people go to the doctors, and they're limited in doing that now, unfortunately, because they're lonely, or because they just need that human connection, and anything anyone can do to facilitate that. And what the podcast can do, and what I want it to do, is to be a bit like a conversation in the background. Like me and you have brilliant conversations, you know, and our podcast was one of the best ones because it was funny and it was just, you know, two people talking. But, you know, people like to listen to that. People like to feel part of that, and they resonate with parts of it. So talking about sleep, talking about eating, talking about, you know, how you can fit exercise in, talking about how you can do that and have a business and be a mother or be a family or, you know, run a business or do whatever you're doing resonates with a lot of people. And it's another method of connecting with people. It's another method of saying, and I say at the end of my podcast on YouTube, you know, how can people talk to you? How can people get to know you? And it could be an email address, it could be a phone number, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be via social media.
Exactly, so true. And this is why I still love Clubhouse. I think a lot of people thought that after a year that I would kind of, or that people generally would fall off the wagon, and some have, and that's fine. But you know, I've been kind of back in there. I haven't been hosting as many rooms as I would like to, but I've been back in there, and I found a nice group of people that run a room on a weekday morning. And, you know, within less than a week of joining now, I've got to kind of speak to some of them. They've had their balloon. It's been a year anniversary for them. And, you know, the lady that hosts that club has very kindly asked me to share some visibility nuggets. But already we've been kind of like on the back channels having jokes and things like that. And I think it's really great, especially if you're a person that wants to put yourself out there, doesn't want your face to be seen. And that adds to sort of any anxiety or mental health concerns or wellness concerns. So I really love it. I really love it. And I think it's going to be a long time before I disappear off there.
Yeah, I love it too, and I need to get back on it, definitely. I think I was on there yesterday with you, and I really enjoyed it, and it's changed so much since I've been on there regularly, and I really want to get back into it. So my first love was actual, you know, audio podcasting, and that's why I loved Clubhouse. Love Clubhouse is because it's sort of you could be cooking your dinner and be on doing that, and I love that about that. So the thing about YouTube is that you do have to be present, you do have to have face on your makeup on, and, you know, find earrings. That's my passion, earrings. And but you know, sort of doing Clubhouse is easy, and it's an easy way to sort of get to know people as well. You know, some of the people that I've got to know and I'm still friends with, I met them in Clubhouse in March. So, you know, that is, you know, and that's amazing. And I really recommend it. And I will be listening to you on Clubhouse, definitely.
I guess the final question is, if you had to give a secret, like the secret sauce about the work that you do in kind of like wealth and health, get my words out, wellness and health and well-being, what would the secret be to help somebody to get into it?
So that's an interesting one, and it's one I've been thinking about personally, actually, recently, is that I think you need to be really clear on what success is and what good enough is as well. You know, so we have our, you know, the new year is a time for setting goals, intentions, whatever way you're going to describe it. But you need to know what being there, what success feels like, and also what's good enough. You know, so if, I don't know, drinking 8 glasses of water is your ideal, would 6 be good enough? And would that make you content? Because you can be constantly striving for something that, and beat yourself up if you don't achieve it. So you almost need to know what good enough feels like, and then strive for good enough 80% of the time, because life is hard. You know, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, we're learning how to live with it. And that doesn't mean that normal life doesn't happen while that goes on. You know, people have relationships, people are falling out with people, you know, some things work, some things don't. You know, how do you want to feel most of the time, and then what are you prepared to do to make that happen? Everything comes with a sacrifice. You know, I'm not saying everyone has to work hard, and some people are more lucky than others, and that's just the way it goes. You know, what you want and what you're prepared to do to get it. But remember, that the price shouldn't be your health and well-being, because there are no pockets in shrouds. When you're dead, you're dead. So you need to make the most of your time and every single day you're on the planet as well. And so what makes you sleep at night, basically, and know that you did the best that you could do. And that isn't very concrete or anything, but it's about how you want to feel at the end of the day.
I just want to say, Dawn, thank you so much for being a guest on here.
My pleasure, absolute pleasure, and thank you for having me. It's been really good. I'd recommend it, Vibe Tribers, and anyone who's listening, to be a guest with Jenny. She's very talented and very good at steering the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that. And please do, type your comments and stuff for Dawn so she can pick them up even after this live is finished. Thank you so much, and I will say goodbye to those of you who are watching live, and thank you so much for sharing all of your nuggets, Dawn. And remember to go share, subscribe and watch on Dawn's
and
channel.
Comment. That'd be great. Thank you to everyone listening, and thank you for listening to me. I hope it's been helpful, and thanks again to Jenny. Take care, everybody, and I'm going to go now. Take care.
You're so welcome.